I want to tell a story through these projects, and I want to capture the heart of the people. So I'm not trying to make a recording that sells all over the world, okay? If it does, that's fantastic. But I want to give voice for people that haven't got a voice.
Yeah. Well, my friend, Martin Neal is here today. We're going to have a conversation today, and I can't tell you how excited I am about this, what we're doing, because it's just so much has been on my heart for the last couple of years. A little bit of background. Martin and I met probably in the early 90s and really didn't have any relationship then. He was part of the Kevin Prosh band, who we had here a number of times, and at that time we were playing down at Lake Sacagawea, and it was a beautiful atmosphere, and this drummer comes in with flight case after flight case of instruments from all over the world, and I thought, who is this guy, and what is he? And he would pull out shells and drums and gadgets and this and that, and it was fascinating because it was an outdoor event, and you were enjoying the whole thing. Just really enjoying it. And then a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, you came back to town as a friend of Jerry Chapman's, and we reconnected, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're that guy. And we had you come here and spend an evening just telling stories. And I found out that you weren't just a drummer, but you're a storyteller extraordinaire. And so it really made an impact on us, Martin, when you came and just told stories. And at that time, you and Jerry were planning on doing a project together. And that project is finished now. And we had a CD release party last weekend. It was an amazing thing. We can talk about that a little bit. But who is Martin Neal? I mean, you're obviously not from town. You're from out of town. Yeah. And can you just kind of paint a picture of yourself for a little bit of who you are?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in East London, which is a very multicultural place when I grew up, and also a very musical, very creative city. So I feel very fortunate to have grown up there. Yeah. And I can remember even as a little boy having friends, two brothers from Iraq and friends from Scotland. And then all around us there were people from the West Indies and different places. So I was very fortunate to grow up in a very multicultural place. But music didn't play a part of life for many, many years. I was really a mad sportsman. That was my thing. Football, rugby, tennis, table tennis, anything with a racket. That was what I loved. And it wasn't until I didn't even have a record player till I was probably 14, 15. Music just wasn't in our house. So it was a bit of a blindsider. And it was some friends that decided to form a band, and the only instrument no one wanted to play was drums, so they told me I had to be the drummer. So I bought a kit. Fortunately, I was a person who always had a bit of money because I worked when I could, and after a few weeks they all decided they didn't want to do that anymore, so I'm stuck with this drum kit in the garage, bashing about. And it was around about when I was 16, 17, some friends from school needed a drummer for their band. And what was funny was where I lived, I had to actually carry the drums on the underground train system. And I couldn't get a straight through train. So at one point, I actually had to carry the drums across the track over the thing, leaving one half on one side and carrying the other half on the other till I could see it. Wow. Up to these friends. And the interesting part of the story is they were actually all people of faith, and the name of the band was called Malachi. And so my musical and my faith side started at exactly the same time.
But what year was that? What was going on musically at the time? Well, in England,
I was just at the start of the punk era. Ah. So I punk was actually the thing that I sort of got involved in quite a lot. But because of the all the different things, and I was really wanting to learn in those times.
Yeah.
You know, I was being taught by a military drum teacher, and I was playing country one night, cabaret the next night, funk the next night, but punk was what got me involved in recording and different things like that. And in fact, my first recording contract was with a punk band where we got asked to do a recording in Germany. So that was my first sort of. So there was all sorts of music going on at the time. You know, it was very, very eclectic. And I would be playing 4 or 5 nights a week. I had a residency in the centre of London, playing London music, and so it was very eclectic. So I really feel very thankful for that growing up period, because I tasted so many different styles and met so many different people.
Yeah.
So
how did you connect with Kevin?
I
don't think I've ever asked you that.
No. When the sort of worship thing
The worship thing
exploded in the UK, there weren't really that many musicians around who were people of faith. And there was a company called Kingsway who I used to do a lot of work with, and they put on a gathering called Worship Together. And what it was to do was to bring all the different people that were starting to write songs for a weekend gathering. And so there was people like Graham Kendrick, Noel Richards, Matt Redman as a 17-year-old, you know, all these people. And none of them had bands, so we just had a house band. Yeah. And so I would get the job to be in the house band, and you just play with everyone. And Kevin got asked over as a sole American artist for that first event. Yeah. And so I'd never heard of him, didn't know who he was. And I was just in the house band to back him on the music.
I think that was when Wimber made an entrance into the UK, right? Around that same time.
That was even before.
Before that?
It was around that time. I can't remember exactly whether it was before or after, but it was definitely around that time. Yeah. But it was in the early days. That
was about the same time I got saved.
Yeah. And then the second time Kevin came across, again, I just happened to get asked to be with him. But it was either the second or third time that we got to sit down and chat. And there was always, at that time, there was 3 things that were really on my heart. One was to encourage the church in their musicality, to bring something beautiful. The other thing was to be a musician outside, to be able to bring light and play in any place that was possible. Yeah. And then the third thing was this heart for the nations. And so Kevin was really the first person that really sort of had a grasp on all those 3 things. And so after that, we started talking, and he asked me if I would do stuff outside of America, because he had a drummer in America. So I started doing all the stuff in New Zealand, Australia, and Europe. And then
it did really blow up, didn't it? It was crazy how fast things changed. And the Delirious came on the scene, and that shook a lot of stuff up too. Yeah. Matt Redman was a big influence. Yeah. This morning you were telling me this. For one, I love your storytelling. So anything I can do to pull a story out of you. But you were telling me a story of this morning about an experience you had the first year that you were married. Would you tell that story? When you entered into your marriage, and that first year when you guys were together, that was just a fascinating story. Would you tell that?
Yeah. I was married before, and that sadly didn't work out. And so when I was single for a number of years, you know, I had a lot of time to think, and also in my career, I had lots and lots of questions because of the way we did things and the way things went. So just before I was getting married, I just happened to read something in Exodus that said, the men of war, they take a year out when they get married. And this really caught my mind, really caught my heart. And but I didn't think anything more of it. It was just something that I sort of read and thought, that's a really interesting thing,
Yeah.
you know. And so when we were getting married, my wife and I are part of a thing called the Northumbria Community, which is based in Northumberland. And we were considering going up there to live. And the leader of the community rang me up out of the blue and just said, Martin, what are you guys going to be doing when you get married? And I said, well, to be quite honest, I haven't a clue. We're still sort of working through marriage, let alone, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, would you consider coming and helping the community for 6 months? And so without thinking, I said, well, would you consider a year? And he said, done. So this idea came into fruition where I stopped playing for a whole year and just went up to the community to serve with them, helping on retreats, helping just tidy houses, clean toilets, hoover floors, and this wonderful times of prayer that they had every day.
Yeah.
So they're what they would call themselves a Celtic new monastic spirituality, where they are learning from traditions of old, based around simple times of prayer every day. So they would have a morning prayer, a midday prayer, an evening prayer, and what they call a compline, which I called Good Night God prayers. And they became a very, very special time for me. And one of the times that was very special to me was midday prayer,
Yeah.
which was only 5 minutes. But the idea was that whatever you were doing at 5 to 12, you would stop, whether you had finished or not. You would stop, and we would all meet in a chapel and say these simple prayers for 5 minutes. And then after that, we had about 45 minutes to be alone and just reflect on anything before we had lunch.
Right.
And this time became a very special time for me. The Lord's Prayer, I said every day at 12 o'clock for a year. And when you do something like that, on a prayer like that, it becomes more than just words. It becomes something very deep. And you understand why. I got a glimpse of why Jesus said, use this prayer.
Yeah.
Because it became something that was very, very powerful to me. In fact, even to this day, sometimes I start saying that prayer and I can only get a few lines in and I stop, because all the memories flood back, and also the words I've pondered so many times, they mean so much to me.
Yeah.
So during those times, usually if I got that 45 minutes to be quiet, there was a river down the road from the community, and I would always walk down there on those quiet times and either sit there or walk along the river, because nature and rivers have always been very close to my heart. And so those times were really, really very special to me. And I think it was around about 9 months into this, we're just sort of starting to come to the end of that year, wondering what's going to happen. And I just really felt walking back from that river, I had a special encounter where I felt something that I felt God saying to me that he was really pleased with what I'd done with my life.
Oh, what a thing to hear.
I felt a well done. I mean, a well done, you've really served people well. But then I felt that he was trying to tell me that he'd put dreams within my heart. And actually this next season wasn't about supporting people as much as it was to start bringing out the dreams that he'd put within me.
Did you know? Did you realize at that moment the importance of what you were hearing?
Not at all. I'm afraid if my wife was here, she tells me I'm a moment person. Okay, I don't have much grid for the past or the future. I'm very much in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a grid, but I knew it was important. And so when that year finished, it just happened. The very, very first thing I got asked to do back in the creative sense was my wife's brother runs the Elijah House Ministries in
Oh, yeah.
in Austria. And Paul I think it's Paula and I've forgotten his name now, Lauren Sanford. I can't remember the names. John Sanford. Yeah. Paula and John Sanford were coming over to lead a gathering there. And so her brother asked me if I would help lead the music. And so because of these ideas that God had thrown into me, I decided that, well, yeah, I'm going to try and do things differently now. And I asked the question, well, how do you want this done on this time? So when I was rung up and asked, could I do it? I said, yeah, I'd love to be part of this. But I then said, but I'd like to do things a bit differently.
Yeah.
And so there was a pause on the end of the phone. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, for years and years and years, I've traveled around the world helping doing gatherings, but you fly in one day and then usually the next day you have a morning practice and then you get into the event. And I just feel that can be more if people know each other, if there's a relationship before the event.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to come in a week early and I'd like to live with the musicians for a week before we even do anything.
Oh, so I bet that went over well.
There was a pause. The cogs were going, but then he because of our relationship, he sort of agreed and said, well, we'll see what we can do. And then he said, anything else? And I said, yeah, there is something else. I said, well, if you've got a big stage, yeah, big stage, lights, smoke, the whole lot. And I just said, we're not going to be using that. And I said, what I'd like to do is go down in the congregation with everyone else. We're all pointing the same way. You just stick a great big cross on the stage. That'll do. Do you know what I mean? And we'll just all be together and all worship. And it was just an amazing time because during that week we really got to know each other. And people, as I often find, are all struggling.
Yeah,
you know, people have their stuff, and often creative musicians have lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we were able to talk through that, encourage each other in that. And so when we did eventually start playing, I just felt that people really trusted me and they really believed that I believed in them.
That must have been so fulfilling.
Yeah.
To see a dream like that worked out. You must have felt at some point like you had permission to do things differently.
Yeah.
From the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it would take a lot of boldness to say, no, we're not going to do it the way we usually do it. We're going to do it a little differently. I have an idea.
And the thing was, I felt, you're right, I felt I gave them permission as well, that because we'd been through this week together, they felt that they had the permission to go anywhere they want, and they knew that I wouldn't mind, you know.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that with creativity is I found that actually it's out of mistakes and out of mess that actually something new can come out of it. But often we don't like messy bits, and we don't like that. During Kevin's time, there was the time that would often happen where we would go into what we would call a spontaneous sound. But often that spontaneous sound came out of a messy bit, where we were searching. And I know some really, really good musicians that I've had chats with who said they would never do that because the messy bit they just didn't like.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always loved, because for me now, I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
You know, because I know if I find that place, I know something's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, most people feel like the messy places are where they're not in control anymore.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And for some reason you feel this affinity towards not being in control.
No, and well, because I actually have learned that sometimes God's in control. Yeah. And in that place, there's something new to find.
So after that point, when you realized you had this experience that was so fulfilling, when you entered into the next few experiences after that, did you take that with you and bring that out in front of people and say?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. There were some things that I had already started to do. Like for instance, when I was with Kevin, when I started by placing the drum kit at the back, you know, like everyone does in pop concerts and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But over the years, I had no problem about doing that when I played in clubs and pubs and concerts. It didn't bother me at all. But for some reason, it really bothered me when I was in a church.
Yeah.
It really bothered me. And so what started happening was I decided to try different places. And it ended up that I would actually sit with my back to the congregation and facing the cross. Do you know what I mean? With the kit facing that way.
Oh, what was it like the first time you did that in a church?
It was, people were shocked. They were shocked. But interesting was, when I started doing that, every single time someone would come up to me and say, "Why are you doing that?"
Yeah.
And I was able to say, "Well, actually, I feel this is different." Do you know what I mean? And this is not about me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm facing what I believe is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so that was a really interesting phase. So I had, there was always something in me all the time that didn't like the status quo of things. Not because I just always wanted to do something different, but I've always been someone that wanted to search for the moment.
Right.
And I've always believed that, I mentioned to you, I call things suddenly moments where it feels like God suddenly, in the situation in a far bigger way than you realised.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for those moments when it's not me controlling it, but that I'm walking into something that maybe God's prepared.
It's interesting how much we despise disruptions in our lives. And yet it seems like that's a lot of the way God moves in our lives is when he disrupts our lives, either with an illness or with some kind of catastrophic event that seems to creep its way into our lives, and all of a sudden we find ourselves out of control. Yeah. And you have found a place in creativity and music where that's actually not a disruption, but a sign of something bigger than us happening.
And I would suggest that it's something that actually I'm living in life as well. So I'll give you, for instance, we were asked by a group of Americans to go over and work in a church in Cambodia to help encourage Khmer music. So we were out there doing that, and before we'd gone out, someone from the community had said to us, "Oh, there's a missionary out in Cambodia. Would you, hook up with her because she doesn't get many people visiting her?" And we said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So we had a day off, rang her up, and said, "Would you like to meet up?" And she said, "Oh yeah, fine." So she came to meet us and immediately wasn't expecting who we were. She thought we were going to be two old people that wanted to go around the tourist stuff and all that. And so she was, "So what do we do? What are we doing?" And we said, "Well, what do you do? What do you do?" She said, "Well, I normally go to the hospital and meet people in the hospital." "Oh, let's do that then." Okay. So we jumped in this little jeepney thing. Okay, go off to the hospital, start meeting people, and just stuff starts happening. And by the end of the time of finishing there, okay, one of the doctors says, "You need to meet such and such a."
Oh, yeah.
And so well,
here we go.
Are they in? Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Are they in? Yeah, they should be in there. Why didn't you go? Okay, in the car, straight off to the next person. Again, just divine encounter. Okay, she says, "Some people down the road you really need to meet." So off again with it. We literally crisscrossed Phnom Penh all day, and this little lady who was out there, she was like shaking, going, "I've never done this sort of stuff before, and I've been out here for years."
Yeah.
And we met amazing people doing the most incredible things. A guy who'd set up a metal factory, and employed only kids from the streets to give them thing.
Oh, wow.
Doctors who were doing the most amazing things with no money, no drugs, no nothing or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then the final thing, right at the end of the day, someone says to us, "You need to go and meet the Khmer Orchestra people." We said, "Well, who are they?" Says, "Well, there's this American lady who's started up this thing with kids on the streets. And I'll say, yeah, we need to meet that. So we go across and we find this American lady and a Khmer lady who've started up this organisation where they take street kids and orphans off the street. They give them a schooling, but the most important thing is they do Khmer creativity at the highest level, in arts, in music, in drawing, in all sorts of things. And if you know the story of Cambodia, when Pol Pot came in and basically took over the country and made it an agrarian society, the first people he took out were the learned people and all the artistic people.
Yeah.
So that the whole Khmer arts had been taken out, and this lady, these young people, were trying to put it back right at the...
Keeping it alive.
Keeping it alive.
Well, so you love documenting things, with recordings, audible recordings, and also with photography and video. Had that already started when you made this trip?
Yes.
So when you went in there, you went in not just experiencing this, but actually having a heart to record it.
Yeah, yeah. So with that situation, we meet this lady, okay, and we don't actually even talk to her about what we do. We just meet her, and they just happened to be going out to do an event. So we had very, very little time. So all we did was we looked around the place. They told us what we did. We swapped numbers and left.
Yeah.
2 years later, I'm at home, do you know what I mean? And I just start thinking about them.
Whoa.
So I send an email off to them and just say, I doubt you'll remember us. It's Martin and Rebecca from the UK. You've really been on my heart. Do you know what I mean? Is there anything we can do to help?
Yeah.
That's all I say. I get an email back the next day and it says, yes, I do remember you. Thanks for writing. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who can record music and film people. And that's how the whole project starts. And I wrote back and said, funnily enough, I do.
Yeah.
And even with that project, just I mean, again, you know, we're always, Rebecca and I are always trying to think, well, how does it work here? You know, how do we do it here?
Yeah.
So she said she was all excited. Just I mean, when can you come out? When can you do this? What, you know, straight away. And we wrote to her and said, we'd love to help you, sort of thing, but we work slightly differently. I said, what we'd like to do is we'd like to come out for a couple of weeks and live with the kids.
Wow.
And get to know the kids and all that sort of thing. So that, and then next time we'll bring recording equipment and all that sort of thing.
Which is totally different than most people who want to take advantage of a situation.
Yeah. Well, the Khmer lady totally got it. The American lady didn't get it at all.
That's interesting, yeah.
She didn't get it at all.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we went out there, spent the 2 weeks and all that, played with the kids, got to know them and all that, at the end of the 2 weeks, she sat us down and she said, I just want to apologise to you. She said, when you told me you wanted to come out without the recording thing, I was angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now I understand, because when you come back as friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we did come back, all the kids knew us. They didn't worry about a microphone. They didn't worry about cameras or anything, because they knew us.
So what did you learn from that about people?
I suppose I'm still learning. Yeah. I mean, I suppose, as I say, we've got this wonderful global world that's happening, but the reality is we are all so unique.
Yeah.
We're unique within a culture, let alone unique within different cultures. And for Rebecca and I, it's trying to find those, what we call touching places.
Yeah.
Where you can actually build relationships through the touching places and not worry about the stuff around it. And so for us, it's very important to find those. And you can only find those if you're with people and you spend time people, you know, because the bottom line is we've been places and people all understand music. People all understand those things, sort of thing. But there's even a phrase that music is universal.
Yeah.
I totally understand that, but I would also disagree with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because music is also geographical, it's cultural, you know, and it has lots of subliminal things that most people don't even understand.
Yeah.
And so I've even used sounds from the land in my recordings because I know the sounds of the land will touch the culture, just but just be a nice thing for other people who don't understand that.
Right. But if you're part of that culture, you
means
hear
something
that
deep.
and it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
It means something
this
deep.
is so personal to us.
I recorded in Hawaii. I recorded an album in Hawaii, and there was a song we were doing called Heartbeat. And on the island of Kauai, there's this amazing fissure in the rocks down by the sea, and it's a blowhole.
Yeah.
Okay, with this makes this sound as the water comes out at night, and everyone knows it as the heartbeat of the island. So I went down there at midnight, climbed over the fence, and got a recording of this thing. And this whole song of Heartbeat starts off with this.
Oh,
and
so
any
cool.
any Hawaiian person, when they hear this start of the track, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They know exactly what that sound is. Do you know what I mean? While someone from the UK, just be a nice sound.
Yeah, yeah. So you must have been, when you went back to Cambodia to film and record, you must have been so excited.
Yeah, no, it was.
These are people we know now.
Yeah, and also you've not only have you spent time with them, but you've been talking about ideas, talking about things. You've got things set up so that when you come back, you know, you can do hopefully the best job you can do of helping them record their story.
What did you record? What were some of the things you recorded with the Cambodians?
Well, so they not only do they have solo instruments, but they also have what they call Khmer orchestras, so lots of different instruments. And dance is a huge thing in Khmer, and so we would record and film all the dances and all the music and then put it all together for them. Yeah.
Wow. How extraordinary. So how do you and Rebecca work together? What's your relationship like? She must be open to doing things differently.
Oh, and sometimes she stretches me. You know,
Really?
So, she's really.
What's she like?
She's. Well, I often use this phrase. I call them in, and she loves on everyone. She just loves people. She really, from a young age, she told me that she has never known a day when she didn't know God.
Whoa. That's a little intimidating.
It is. But I totally believe her.
Yeah.
I totally believe her from knowing her family background. Yeah. So she has no problem of understanding that God's with her. And she has always prayed unasked that the one gift that she wants is the gift of love.
So you must have lots of experiences together,
Yeah.
lots of conversations, even before you had the experiences.
Yeah.
How do you, as a couple, celebrate what God is doing in your midst?
Just to go back a little thing. One time we're in a restaurant, and we're just having a restaurant, and we've had a meal. We're coming out of the restaurant, walking out of the restaurant, and this waitress rushes out in absolute tears, grabs hold of my wife, and just says, "Thank you, thank you." Just me, and then goes back. And we're looking around, what was all that about? So, I mean, and even Becca's a little bit perplexed. But apparently what happened was when Rebecca walked into the restaurant, she noticed her in the corner with her head down. So she bent down and just smiled at her and then went to her seat.
Wow.
That's Becca.
Yeah.
She notices the French, those on the edge, you know, and she'll always be there for those sort of people.
I'm just picturing you coming home from a trip, and you've been all over the world. I mean, in a remarkable way all over the world. You've seen and heard things that most people will never see and hear because they just don't take the time to do it. Mm-mm. When you come home from a trip like that, exhausted, wanting to rest, but also looking at each other and going, what just happened?
Well, I mean, first of all, we both travelled together. 99% of the time just happens at the moment because of her parents being older. She's having to stay a couple of times, sort of thing. So we always think, but we one of the things we say when we leave home, we look at each other and we'll go, "It's another adventure."
Yeah.
So we're always, looking for that adventure, and that there's something inside us both that that knows that God's with us, and it's just about us putting one step in front of each other to see what happens. And we're always willing to say yes to the sort of the suddenly moments.
Yeah. And together.
Yeah.
So you just finished a project with Jerry, and I've heard you talk a little bit about the specifics about how you approach this project, but it didn't just happen in a weekend.
No.
It happened over a period of time. Could you just talk about what that process was like, and how you thought through that process? And you knew Jerry, but it was like there was something in him that you wanted to bring out.
Yeah.
How did that work, Martin?
Yeah. I come from a background where in studio work, you can be called one day and the next day you go in, and in some places you'll get some music in front of you, or in other places you hear the track and you just play straight away what's on your heart. And some amazing things can happen through that. But through that process, I always felt that, if only we had a little bit more time.
Yeah.
If only we had some time to throw some more different ideas around, try some new ideas. So I was a frustrated studio musician because of that time. So when I came to this period when I wanted to try do things different, I decided that time wasn't going to be the factor.
Yeah.
That I would take my time and hopefully just get to that place where I thought, that's the best I can do. That's the best I can do. So when it came to the first time I met Jerry, what impressed me about Jerry was actually his voice. Although I'm a drummer, and I love how he makes things and his drumming and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was his voice that impacted me. There was something about when I heard his voice that it was such a full sound, and it wasn't a pop voice. And it really felt like it was steeped in his culture and his story, and so it really touched me. And so when we came to actually start recording, most often what will happen is you will get what they call a guide track. So a keyboard or a guitar part will be put down, and then the singer will sing to that to make sure it's in perfect tune. And often these days, that's not even good enough for most people. So after that, they'll auto-tune it so it's absolutely perfect in tuning. But I decided that I would start with the voice, which was quite a vulnerable thing to do, because if I wanted to add anything later, it was just like, is this going to work or not?
Yeah.
So the only thing I did do is that I went in and I recorded every single one of Jerry's drums at different pitches and different things. And then I found the drums that suited his voice.
Which is totally backwards.
Totally backwards. And
I don't think people realize that.
I didn't even know it was going to work.
Yeah.
I was stepping into an area. I was just hopeful. Do you know what I mean? Part of me was thinking, well, the bottom line is I won't add any instruments. I'll just have rhythms. Do you know what I mean? But my hope was to add something more than that. So we did that, and we recorded his voice against drums. Then I went back and added more rhythms and put it all together. But then it was, okay, now the moment of truth. And so we were down on the Slits reservation, and there was an amazing flute player going to come and be part of this project. And she must have brought probably 50, 60 different flutes along. None of them tuned to his voice.
Oh no!
None of them tuned to his voice. So again, you have to start thinking differently. And so what we did was we just got her to play to mean as close as she possibly could to his voice. And then what I did was when I got home, I used modern technology and I just brought it down.
You tuned her flute to it.
Her flute
so this is just extraordinary because one of the things I've learned from Jerry over the years is when he builds a drum and he plays it for the first time publicly, he says that he's releasing the voice of that drum, that the drum has a voice and it needs to be released. Yeah. And you're taking these instruments and you're looking for the sound that's tuned to his voice, which is just a phenomenal idea. And I don't think I wanted, part of this reason I wanted to do this interview was I wanted to bring some of those things out because it's such an extraordinary way to look at creativity, valuing his voice first, and then everything else comes after that.
So much of the music, it's very easy for a musician to create an atmosphere. It's very easy. I mean, we do it all the time. So all you do is you put a great big thick pad with lots of sounds on it, sort of thing. You hold it on, and then all you do is you push the fader up till it's louder. Okay, and immediately you'll get a response. You know, musicians know this.
Yeah.
I mean, they know how to, I would suggest, manipulate sometimes. On when it goes too far the other way. It's easy to do that. It's a lot harder if you don't do that. And I refuse to do that. I refuse to do that. And so for me, his voice was what I wanted to capture. I didn't want anything else to clutter it. I wanted that to be the main focus. So I wanted to stay away from keyboards, stay away from guitars, so that his voice really stood out.
Yeah.
But also, when you do that, when you take away the things that fill all the frequencies of sound, it means that actually you start noticing all the other frequencies that are happening. So actually you start noticing, oh, there's a different drum there. Oh, something's coming in from the left. Oh, something's coming in from the right.
Yeah.
So to me, oh, there's a backing vocal I can hear now. Oh, there's a male voice. You can start hearing all those things. It's not just a wall of sounds that you're listening to. Nothing wrong in a wall of sound. Nothing wrong in that. I just prefer to be able to hear the individual things and I would even say the individual heart of those sounds.
It reminds me of the story you told this morning about the Aborigine in New York. That's a great story.
Yeah, but Aboriginal man walking down the streets of New York, and he suddenly turns to his friend and says, "Hey," he says, "do you hear the cricket?" And the New York guy just looks at him as if he's a freak, and he says, "A cricket?" He says, "I can hear ambulances, I can hear cars, doors slamming, people screaming, kids crying. I can hear anything, but I can't hear any crickets. What do you mean by that?" And they carry on walking around the corner. There's a piece of grassland, and there is a little cricket sitting there. And the New Yorker's freaks out, just says, "How on earth did you hear that?" And the Aboriginal man says, "It just depends on what you're listening for."
I love that. I love that story. So what are you listening for when you listen to Jerry's music?
I'm listening for heart. You know, when we recorded his voice, okay, that's what I was looking for. And I just got him to sing it as many times until I felt I heard that voice, that heart. You know, and in some tracks it came straight away. There was one track, the first time he ever sang it, and I recorded it. That's what we've used right from the beginning. There was one track we went over time and time and time and time again, just because I knew it wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. I recorded a project in New Zealand with the Maori people, and what it was bringing in the Maori people, who are the people of the land, with the Pakeha people, which are the people that are coming to the land. And we were doing a project bringing both things together. And we had this song Bonnie had written, which was just an incredibly intimate song. It was just so beautiful. And the singer that she'd wanted to use, her husband had had a massive car crash a few months before and had total brain damage. And so she'd lost her husband. And she came in to sing this song, and she was just all over the place. The poor lady was just in an absolute mess. Mm. But I heard a sound deep within her heart, and it was a sound of the story of grief, of innocence, of where she was at that moment. And it was so beautiful to me that I wouldn't let it go. So we just kept going back to her, another day, until we caught it.
Wow.
But for me, that it's, so often we can let stuff get in the way. It's it's, you're not doing it now, so we'll move on. It's, time. We can't do it. Sometimes I just go against that, because I'd rather capture the heart of that. And so, whenever I hear that track, I tear up, because I know the story behind it.
Yeah.
I know how hard it was for that person, but how encouraging it was to come out with something at the end.
You must feel like every song, every creative process has a story behind it. I mean, like you were telling me, after when we did the CD release party, there were some people there that were part of Jerry's past, his family members. And I think the way that you put it, they were hearing not just what Jerry did at that moment, but they could feel the past. Mm-hmm. His past was in that song. Mm. Describe what that means.
I think it goes back to I want to tell a story through these projects, and I want to capture the heart of the people. So I'm not trying to make a recording that sells all over the world. Okay, if it does, that's fantastic. But I want to give voice for people that haven't got a voice.
Yeah,
and First Nations, Native Americans have not had a voice. We just found out today, for the first time ever, a female actress won a Golden Globe. Just this last few days.
Yeah, I saw it on TV. She was a native.
First time ever an Indigenous person in America has won a Globe. I mean, that's terrible. That's terrible. And so for me, there are so many peoples all over the world that just don't have a voice. And with this project, I wanted to go back to some of those traditions. Hence, the project starts off with the first 3 songs, and they're all very based around the simple beats that they use, with Jerry's vocals over the top. And all I do is, it starts off, the very first track starts off with his voice and a hand drum. Okay? And then what happens is the power drum comes in. And then what starts happening is rhythms from around the world come in, and the voices. So I'm telling a story. I'm bringing in all these different things, and the idea is to and usually what happens is the other way round. You'll have this big sort of sound from the west, and then suddenly you'll have a power drum coming in halfway through, which you might not even be able to hear. So I'm trying to do it from there, giving them their voice, and then allowing them to be the center, and then everything else coming around their sound. So that was the idea. And as the project progresses, you get instruments coming in, like the flute, and then this Chapman stick and different things coming in to build on. And then each track, hopefully, finds a new sound until you get to the last track, which is very much, I would call hybrid track where it's really brought a Western sound and the First Nations sound together.
Martin, you mentioned a Chapman stick. When you mentioned that the other night, I had no idea what you were talking about. What is a Chapman stick? It's a relatively new innovation, isn't it?
Yeah, it was made by a guy in the States I think it's 1976. I know it's the 70s that this guy came up with this idea. And what he did was he brought together some techniques that have been used on guitar, but actually added some things together. So it's a lump of wood with strings on, basically.
Oh,
but these strings are played in a technique called hammering on,
yeah,
where you can actually play the bass at one end of the stick, and at the top end you can play a more sort of guitar keyboard type sound, and you can put effects on it, and it's a very, very modern sound. And so why I was really interested in using this instrument, partly because Chapman.
Jerry Chapman, yeah.
But partly because it was this idea of ancient and new, bringing this ancient drum sound, but then bringing one of the newest instruments together with it.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your ministry? Because there is a container for what you do, and you don't talk about it very much.
No, probably don't. No.
Yeah, and so sometimes I wonder, how does he make it with this? Where do the financial support? Because you rarely ask anybody for anything when you work with them, and yet you have to pay for airfare and things like that. How does the ministry work? Maybe you don't even want to talk about that.
Well, when Rebecca and I got married, we both sat down and we both agreed that we would never ask anyone for anything.
Woof.
And we never have. And as we've gone along, we've had the most, it's just been amazing. We've had everything from people just saying, oh, we want to, support you, not even asking.
Yeah.
We step out, I don't know how many times we step out with no money into things. I'll give you a typical example. Okay. So we talked about Cambodia.
Yeah.
We're flying to Cambodia on one of those trips. And I'm looking for flights. And Rebecca chirps up, I think we should go to Thailand as well. We can pass through Thailand. And I go, yeah, that's a good idea. So I look at the flights, and going through Bahrain and all those sort of places, it's cheap as chips. Going through Thailand, it's double the price.
Wow.
Double the price. So I turned to her and said, no, it's just too much. So I carry on looking. Okay, come to the next. I usually do it over a couple of days. I don't buy straight away. So like I say, Becca comes to me again. She says, I really think we need to go to Thailand. When we've always agreed, if anyone feels something just more than once, then we just do it.
Yeah.
And so I said, great, okay, we're going to Thailand. So we went to Cambodia and then came back through Thailand. So we landed in Thailand, met our friends, Paul, he's American, Yam, she's Thai, and they're working with trying to bring cultural Thai music into the church.
Yeah.
So we go there, spend some time with them, have a really lovely few days. I ended up helping them with a track. We do a track, just drums and her voice, which is stunning. I loved it. It was just a real special time. So we had a great time together. Day before we're going, they sit us down and say, we just need to have a chat with you. I said, yeah, fine. She says, what's happening? She said, we need to tell you something. Paul said, the reason we're here is because of you, Martin. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, he said, years ago when we got married, he said, we came and to an event and you shared your heart about the nations. Because we heard that, it put something in our hearts and we changed everything, and we ended up coming to Cambodia so that we could actually start writing Thai music for the Thai church.
Oh.
Okay. He said, 2 weeks ago, he said it has been the hardest few years in our lives. Hardest few years in our lives. And 2 weeks ago, we decided that we were giving up and going home. And he said, God sends the person who started us off back to see us when we've going to give up.
So exciting.
And he said, we've decided we're not giving up. We're going to carry on. So Becca's little thing had brought us to a place where we'd encourage these people. We went home. They rang us back a week later to say, you are not going to believe it. The doors have opened wide, and all these secular people are coming to us asking us, how can we do that? We've just got a load of funding. We've started a record company. It just exploded after that time.
That is amazing.
So our not having money, just mean if we'd have gone on not having money, we wouldn't have seen that breakthrough from them. And when we got back, there was a check in the post to cover the flights.
That is amazing. It shows you the value that God has for a relationship. Like, it makes you wonder whether some of the number of things that we worry about. God doesn't worry a bit about. Well, he doesn't worry, but I mean, like, we seem to be worried about so much, and he seems to care about you sitting down with that couple and being able to speak into their lives.
Yeah, I know. And I think, again, I'm very careful when I talk about finances and things like that, because I truly believe, we are unique.
Yeah.
And just because Rebecca and I decide to do things the way we do, it doesn't mean to say everyone has to do them that way, sort of thing, But I believe there is a principle that it's just like, God, what's it for us?
Yeah.
Just rather than the copying, it's okay. Well, we have a phrase in the community: "How then shall we live?"
Yeah.
Just how do we live? Just don't worry about everyone else. How do we live? And that's how we try, to walk. And as I say, we've been surprised beyond belief by those things. Do we struggle?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember one time pulling into a lay-by. I'm just bawling my eyes out because I wasn't too sure whether we should pay the rent or pay our tithe. So heck, it's not easy. There's been really hard times, We've never owned a house.
Yeah.
We've decided to lead a simple life because we wanted to do the things that we felt were really important. So we haven't bought a house.
But you find yourself in the midst of situations that have so much divine potential.
Yeah.
Tell them about the story of the guy, the landowner who owns the castle in Wales that you guys are connected with now.
Again, just mad things. Because of COVID, we ended up going to support Rebecca's family. They're in their 90s, and they in the UK they weren't allowed out of their house, so we went to support them. And we have a connection in Wales anyway. Some people who are part of the community have landed in, that's a whole another story, landed in a monastery there. So we had this connection with them. And they'd always talked about this guy, John, that they thought that we needed to meet. Well, this guy, John, ended up marrying someone I know for 35 years as a singer and musician. And so when we ended up at Becca's parents for COVID, the day that we landed there, Rebecca, 11 o'clock at night, just getting to bed, Becca says, don't John and Helen have a prayer thing in the morning? And I said, I haven't a clue, And she said, you need to find out. So, okay. So I send her a text like 11:30 at night. I get a text straight back. Yeah, please come. So we go there, early start, go there, prayer breakfast, and meet everyone and all that sort of thing. And afterwards, John and Helen just say to us, would you mind staying behind afterwards? I've got something to talk to you about. Yeah, I'd love to. So they sit us down afterwards and said, you guys have been really on our heart, and we'd like to offer you something. And I said, what's that? So, well, we have a vision to build a hall of music on top of this mountain where we live. And I said, yeah, we know that, And I said, we really feel that you'd be a really great help to us in this sort of thing. And they said, well, what you don't know is we've just bought the house next to us down the road, and we'd like to offer it to you to be a base for yourselves.
Wow.
So, and there's a little shed at the bottom of the garden, that you could use for your music, and Becca's thinking he's not sticking his drums in a shed, So anyway, a few weeks later, they invite us down there, and it's this huge place. And this shed is like a purpose-built place, down the thing, which now I've built into a music studio.
Yeah.
And so, and what we've found out, over the years, he's a lord. He's Lord Powys over quite a bit of Wales, and he owns castles, houses, half a waterfall, land, all sorts of things.
Oh my!
But he has this amazingly generous heart, and so he has opened a door for this place where we can live.
Can you share the vision of the worship center that he wants to build?
Yeah, he
this is extraordinary in itself.
Yeah, Helen and him have got a real heart for worship and for prayer and for the nations. And they have he's a real dreamer, and it's a really lovely story. He was writing. He journals a lot, and he was writing in his journal just normal day-to-day thoughts, and you can literally see his handwriting change. Okay, and this line came out: build me a hall of music, a banqueting feast for the Lord of Life.
Oh my God.
And then his handwriting goes back to his normal handwriting.
Wow.
So this happened,
revelation in penmanship.
Yeah, this happened a few years ago, and so they've been walking towards, well, what does that mean? Even the phrase, it's not a hall of worship.
Yeah.
It's a hall of music. So they've been working through, and they're at the stage where January they're hoping to start the building.
This month, January?
This month.
Wow.
So and
what's the vision?
It's going to be a huge log cabin with glass windows at one end that opens out over the valleys of Wales to pray for Wales, and it will be a gathering place and a feasting place.
Yeah.
So, but as I say, at this point, all they're doing is the step that they've been told, and so at the moment, it's just about building this place.
I think it was Rebecca that told me, for years you've been going out to the nations, and that the vision for this hall of music is that the nations will come to you. And
that's what's been starting to happen. Now we've got this home. We've had people from Hawaii, from Europe, from Canada, from America. No, not America yet, I don't think. But we've had people coming to just be with us. And what's been really lovely is a lot of them, their comments have been, it's just been great to do life with you. So that's been really interesting to, as you say, for the nations to start coming to us.
Yeah. One of the things I love about your story, Martin, is that it's inviting. It draws you in. I mean, your storytelling is like that too. It draws you in. It'll be remarkable to see what God does in the next 10 years because he's obviously drawing people towards you as well as you going out towards people.
Yeah. And a number of years ago, I was in San Diego, and someone I didn't really know that well rang me up out of the blue. I just said, I had a dream about you last night. And I said, oh, what was that? And he said he really felt that God said, tell Martin, don't forget the UK. And it was just intriguing. Just, I mean, why, those, and of course, COVID happened, where we ended up having to be back. And now this situation where the nations are coming to us. And it's really been interesting. And I just really feel that maybe there's something in Wales that we're going to see happen. You know,
I
it
would
will
love
be in
that.
our land,
Yeah.
not just in, you know, and it might be that people from other places will come and help us bless our land.
God sure seems to have a heart for the people in Wales.
Yeah.
Or for the land even.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you were sitting down, this is kind of a weird question, but if you're sitting down with somebody who was 15 and you could tell they have a creative gift beyond just they're good at this, but there's something in them, what would you say to them about music?
I'm actually not sure I'd say anything about music. I mean, I think for me, character is much more important than music. I think if you can actually do things with a good heart, just I mean, do things that you really do care about people.
Yeah.
Trust in what you're hearing and what you're going after, and being diligent in what your gift that you've been given. It's a bit naughty, but you know, people used to come up to me all the time and say, "Martin, could you pray for me for your gift?"
Yeah.
And I'd say, no, I won't. But what I will do, I'll pray that you'll be diligent and that you'll go and find a teacher, just mean, and that you'll learn your craft, just mean, and do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, you know, for young people, I mean, it's like seeing Presley at the moment.
Jerry's
grandkid.
grandson.
I mean, he sat down with me today, and he must have talked to me about half an hour about building his bustles on all the stuff, regalia for his things, and how he wants it this way and this colour, and how he wants it to turn this, and he wants it this size. And I mean, 13. Do you know what I mean? And already he's unbelievably creative.
Yeah.
Just I mean, but not only is he creative, he's searching it out on YouTube. He's trying different things. You know, one thing last night he's doing a whole thing on this, you know, this thing he wanted to do, and the words he was using was, "It's not quite ready yet." Just meaning, no, but I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Just so great to hear.
Oh.
And so for me, you know, Jerry's built this character in this kid, you know, because he helps Jerry in all sorts of things, you know, and that character has now led into this amazing creative journey that he's going to be on.
Yeah. It is a joy being your friend.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me into your life. I mean, I remember I haven't traveled abroad much, but when I was in Wales this last year, and one of the things I thought about while I was there was, this is where Martin and Rebecca call home. And they're friends of mine. And the connection, I mean, there'll always be more connection, but I'm just so grateful for what we have. I'm grateful for the way you've spoken into my life. And the way that you've opened my eyes up to see things a little deeper and a little different. And so I think part of my willingness to go to places I don't understand quite well, it comes from being around people like you who just kind of set me free to be myself. Thank you.
We all need that encouragement, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.